In a world where progress never sleeps, one company stands out as the driving force behind infrastructure and energy solutions. Introducing our fuel company and cement producer, where excellence meets efficiency. Jah Oil. The company have 30 filling stations across the country that are all operating, which includes the recently completed Yarambamba and Old Yundum filling stations. And our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Along the years, Jah Oil introduces importation and distribution of cement in their line of business to diversify and strengthen their operations. Are you a cement retailer? At the moment, Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market. With a focus on sustainability and innovation, we are paving the way for a greener, stronger future. Trust in us to fuel your projects and lay the groundwork for success. We currently produce over 25,200,000 bags per year. As the largest cement producer in the country, Jah Oil also targets to export cement to the neighboring countries like Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and others. Join us on our journey to shape a world where every drop of fuel and every bag of cement makes a difference. Together, we can build a brighter tomorrow.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta to dede. Luta mo nulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Bësal mu fay.
What?
Bësal mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Axina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills, and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave. Bësal mu fine. Wave. Your money is yours.
I'll introduce my guest very shortly, but I want to begin with a text message he sent in reaction to my serialized conversation with the current governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia, Mr. Boa Sedi. Good afternoon, Peter. Megabank was strong, safe, and sound when I was leaving the central bank. It had capital twice higher than the regulatory requirement of 200 million. Megabank was under no financial distress. In fact, we got an offer of $1.5 billion from one investor through auction with exchange rate of 50 or 51 to $1 at the time. This is about $30 million. This bank has excellent landed properties. These are high-quality assets. Megabank cannot be sold today for just over $1 billion. We accepted the offer of $1.5 billion and asked the investor to deposit the dollar equivalent in our reserves at Federal Reserve Bank, New York. They were given 3 months, but no payment was made. And that was coming from Bakary Jammeh. So we have a policy here. If you have anything to say, just come. It's open to all. And we'll talk about Megabank and the economy later. But first of all, this is what I want to open with. Bakary has just done a new book, and he's kind enough to give an advance copy. It's not on book stands yet, but yeah. And it's called The General Theory of Employment, Exports, Monetary, and Fiscal. I'll let you know when it's out so that you can get your copy. Bax, I call him. Thank you very much for coming to Coffee Time. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You were a bit lost, because you didn't know we had moved.
Yes. Yes.
You've also taken to book writing.
Yeah.
I mean, when did you discover that, you had, the ability, the skill to write books?
Well, thank you, Peter. I have been working on this for a long time. the work itself started when I was doing my undergrad at Istanbul University in Turkey. We were, as econometrician, you do a lot of work on mathematics, economic theory, modeling. So we were using a lot of matrices to do our work. That is mathematics, calculus. So there, one day I was in the room studying. So I was also doing matrices. I did a transformation, but the result I saw, it surprised me myself. This was when I was doing my fourth year at university. So I worked on it using different data. But then I was trying to apply it on economic theory, how variables are stable. I was using it for that. But when I looked at the data, I realized I'm seeing positives and negatives. So that reminds me that this might be relevant to physics. So I started reading physics as well. That's the second book. I ran out of copies of that.
Oh,
that's the second
good for
book.
you.
Yes.
They sold like hotcake, eh?
Yes. So I worked on that also. Then I started seeing planetary motions, the laws of motions were coming, co-moving objects were coming. So I realized that I am in physics, because I was able to calculate the rotational period of objects, the orbital period of objects, So I said, well, this is not economics, this is physics. So I did more research on that. Then the same theory, I adjusted it. Then I found myself in economic theory as well. So I applied it on U.S. economic data, United States economic data, which I sourced from the International Monetary Fund, IMF. That led to this book is about 500 pages.
Oh, wow.
It's a very good theory, and I will take it as an advice for the country. If we follow the advices in this book, this country is going to move forward.
Is it a book for everyone, or is it just a book for, economists?
It's a book for everyone. If you are a mathematician, it is a book for you. If you are even a journalist, you don't need to go through the mathematics. There is a long introduction there, and there are some sections which there are no mathematics. You can go there and then read them. But if you read the introduction, because there are so many issues there, for example, why would a country not move forward? Why would another country move forward? What I discovered in this book is simple. If you want to move a country forward, put your money in your people.
Ah.
Yes. Put your money in your people.
Not in some reserve account in New York.
No. Because I discovered that using United States data, 67%, 2/3 of output is coming from human capital, and 33% is coming from labor. So there was a mistake in the past. People thought that when Arodoma models came, the suggestion was that poor countries were poor because they don't have capital. And for you to move forward, you need capital. But this led to so many mistakes. Countries borrowed and then they were spending. And in the end, it only produced highly indebted poor countries, because some of those monies were not spent properly. Some were, went into private pockets. So at the end of the day, countries did not move forward, and they remain poor with high debt burden. So that led to the HIPIC initiative, highly indebted poor country initiative. So for you to move forward, you must have two things as the foundation of your economy: human capital development and production of goods for exports. This is very central.
Okay. We're not doing well in the latter, but what about the former, human capital?
We have to work on that. To develop human capital, it's a long process. It doesn't just start from university. Particularly this time when we see that there is a lot of hardship in the country at the moment. Inflation is high. So you need to come with social programs. Our mothers who are expecting, you support them, particularly those who go to hospitals and realize that their weights are not adequate or at the level that shows that they are healthy. They need to be supported. You also need to have breastfeeding mothers, you support them, and also school feeding program, because you don't want to have children who are malnourished. So this is where you start, and you reform your primary education and then secondary education, and you have top-level universities. These are some of the things done in countries like Singapore. They have top-level universities. Switzerland is another one. You know, Switzerland is a small country, but they produce so many Nobel Prize winners in various fields because they have top-level education. They don't have any natural resources. They don't. Switzerland does not have natural resources.
So when we lament the fact that resources-wise, natural resources were not endowed, it's just a lame excuse.
Exactly. Singapore has no natural resources. They have top-level human capital. Japan has no natural resources. They have top-level human capital. Even AI is produced is by people. Computers are produced by people.
Absolutely.
So you need these two things as your foundation as a country: human capital development and production of goods for exports. If you do infrastructural development, ensure that you link it to human capital development, production of goods for exports, and employment. You link it to them. Otherwise, you may end up having infrastructure that may not be contribution to output. And in the end, you may end up having a highly indebted poor country. And you end up not moving at all.
Is that the risk we run? I mean, we are heavy on infrastructure development, aren't we? But have
Yes.
we linked it to, human capital development and industrial, production development?
That is the next stage which we need to look at. The most important asset of the country, that is human capital. They are leaving the country, going through Bakary. We can stop it. Our engineers, our doctors, our lawyers, our space scientists, medical scientists who should have been in this country are going through Bakary. That can be stopped by focusing on human capital. This is important. I saw it in the book, and I tested U.S. economic data empirically, that 67% of the economy output is produced by human capital, human beings, labor, and 33% is capital. So even if you focus only on human capital development, the country will progress. Countries that has China's progress cannot happen without top-level, highly productive human capital. This is what drives China. And these were the people who mastered technology and transformed China to become the factory of the world. So for you to move forward, these are two areas we need to work on: human capital development, production of goods for exports, and employment. Now, I use exports, United States, because even in the US, there is a period they call the Great Moderation. So it is a very stable period in the US economy, low inflation, stable and some moderate economic growth in the US economy. But when I do because this I've been working on this for a long time. So this period that I have time to focus on this, it gave me the opportunity to finish, do more thorough work and then finish the work. Now, I realized from 1980 to 2004, It's a very unique period in the U.S. economy. So I call it the threshold period. I call that period threshold. And I said, even European Union, once it reaches this threshold, it means the Union has reached its limit. You know, you cannot just expand like that. So U.S. During this period, from 1980 to 2004, they reached this threshold period. And using that, the export data and employment data of this economy, you build a micro foundation, that is the foundation of the economy, to go to the broader economic level. From there, I was able to show how consumption looks like, how investment looks like, and also profit of farms, how it looks like. And another striking thing that in the book, you know, is what role, the roles of government. Because when Adam Smith wrote his book, people considered him as the father of capitalism. We call them classical economists. They believe among the classical economists was that you don't interfere with the economy. If the economy goes down, well, that's okay, it's natural. It will correct itself. But if you, in the book, if you go there, you will see, I proved it mathematically, that it will never correct itself. The economy will face collapse.
There needs to be intervention.
There needs to be
an intervention from where? From state?
From government. That is what Keynes said. This classical free market theory was tested in the 70s and early 80s, the 70s, yeah, when they had stagflation. Inflation, no, in the 30s, in the 1930s. What happened was, that was the period of the Great Depression. Economy deviated from its path and then was just falling. It was a crossing fall at the time. So the belief was that economy will self-correct itself. I think that time it was Herbert Hoover, who was the president of the United States. So the free market thinking was that the economy will self-correct. But that never happened. United States unemployment rate, about 15 million people were out of job. People started, it was a Great Depression. Depression is a very bad recession. Recession that dragged on for some years. So it did not the economy did not correct itself. So that brought the world. That was the time. Then Keynes produced his book called The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. So his idea was that I think the state must intervene to sort out the economy. But for Keynes, the problem in the economy was lack of demand. So that is why you see when there is crisis, you see people be jumping, government will be spending, because they want to, stimulate the economy.
Like Obama did in 2008.
In 2008. Yeah. But that is the Keynesian economics. It is better than the free market, the classical economics, that the economy will self-correct. Economy will never self-correct. In the Keynesian model, they are also, I proved it mathematically, government has to do a heavy lifting, because if the economy falls like that from full employment, you will see that the fall will be equal to wage income plus fall in prices, which means you will have deflation. Income will fall and prices will fall. So Keynes said it is lack of demand and you need to put money. But my case is not lack of demand. It is fall in productivity of labor. This is very important because labor is 67% contributor to the economy.
Let me ask you, so how do you view the circular agreements with Spain, Saudi Arabia? We hear UAE is also involved, but we are yet to see any movement.
You mean to send Gambians?
Yes.
Well, there will be farmers and, I don't know, domestic workers and so on. Maybe that's...
Government's argument is they are creating employment. I mean, you and I want employment created.
No, if you go to Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
You will find so many Indians there from the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT. It's a top engineering school. I think even Google CEO went through that school. So you don't need to send those people to Saudi also. What you need is create those kind of institutes in this country. When they go there to Saudi, they will not be working on farms and domestic workers. They will be working as medical doctors, engineers. So those people are free people. Everyone needs them. And even us here in the Gambia, we will need them. So this is very, very important. This country, small countries that follow the Singapore model, they are all doing well. And in the Singapore model, there is greater emphasis.
What small countries, to provide evidence that, countries that are doing this are moving forward, and because we, the Gambia, are not doing that, I mean, we are where we are still.
Well, example is Cape Verde in the sea here.
Yes.
If you look at the resources we have and compared to Cape Verde is geographically challenged. It's in the Indian Ocean.
It's rocky. Hardly anything,
if there is drought,
there, yes.
If there is drought, it becomes problematic. This country, you look at Singapore.
They tell me it's now a middle-income country.
Yeah, of course. Of course. If you are going to Cape Verde, you will need $1,000 to prove at the airport. You need to show that at the airport. And you need to book for hotel. And you must have...
Hopefully this is not, to pay to be allowed in, as we do at the airport.
No.
$20 to get in, $20 to get out.
No, that one is to show that you have money
yes.
to feed yourself in Cape Verde. And you must have hotel booking, and you must show a return ticket.
Wow.
Yes. But because of the geographical location, and because they went through some very difficult history, I think there was drought in the country. Life was so difficult. Many people even migrated out of Cape Verde.
Well, they say the population of Cape Verde, outside of Cape Verde, is larger than, the Cape Verdeans at home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of that period, life was very difficult, so people migrated out of Cape Verde. There was drought, even water was a problem. So Cape Verdeans recognized that we need to have very strong government so that we manage ourselves very efficiently to move forward. This is very, very important. And in Cape Verde also, they place emphasis on human capital development. And just like the Singapore model, Singapore, they have top-level universities, engineers everywhere, producing top-level, ranging from computer chips to, you name it, they are producing all that. So we need to focus on that. Human capital development.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did they turn their economy around? Because there was a time when we were better off than both Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau, which used to be administered as one country.
Not only that, China in 1969 was poorer than all of us in sub-Saharan Africa.
Really?
China's per capita income in 1969 was about $145. $145.
When we in the Gambia were at what?
No, with sub-Saharan Africa average was higher than our average was higher than that. It was higher than 145. That was a very poor country.
1969.
But they went through a period what they call century of humiliation. At some point, even China was invaded. You remember the Opium War with the British. So they went through a very difficult period. Even up to the 90s.
Will it take invasion by Senegal of us, maybe to
No.
to get off our bums and start working? if you like?
No, no. No, it is only for us to be focused. It is very important. And if you have human capital, you start your human capital development, production of goods for exports. You also have employment, because, of course, if you start producing to export, how many people will be in the transportation, how many people will be in the, that's the logistics, how many people. So how many people will be in the factories, so it's just creating employment all over the country. And this provides stable and quality jobs for the people. So this is very, very important for us to focus on. And the other thing which, for example, Switzerland, they do is social harmony. If you look at Switzerland's population, it's diverse. You have Germans, you have French, you have Italians, you have so many populations, but they maintain social harmony. It is to be a Swiss, that is what is important.
Okay.
And everyone is benefiting from the fruits of progress in the country. You ensure that everyone in the country is comfortable.
But surely that is happening here as well.
We at this point we have hardship.
Yeah, but I'm talking about social harmony. There is social harmony.
No, we are insulting each other, social media every day.
I just complained about the GRA awards being held in the middle of Lent, if you like. So Christians not being considered in certain decision making.
Jah Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
Axel jam si Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta to dede. Luta mo nulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello? Ano lay waxal?
Bisul mu fine.
What?
Bisul mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Axina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. Ak Wave. Bisul mu fine. Wave. Your money is yours.
Okay, we're talking to Mr. Bakary Jammeh, former governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia. We started with his book, but we'll now go into his work. You started out by describing yourself as an econometrician.
Yeah.
Is that the word?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. What's an econometrician? I mean, I was expecting I'm an economist.
No, that's why I say economist stroke econometrician.
Okay. What's an econometrician, and how is she different from an economist?
Yeah, is econo means economics.
Yes.
Metric means measurement. So you say economic measurement.
Okay.
When as an economist, you say when demand increases, prices increase. Mm-hmm. Econometricians will go further. They want to tell you by how much the price will increase. And from now to next year, how they are going to look like. So it's doing the real measurement. That is why you use economic theory, mathematics, and statistics to do your work. These are your tools as an econometrician.
You spent a long time in the CBG, Central Bank of the Gambia, before heading it. Yeah. How long were you governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia?
About 3 years, May 2017 to September 2020.
Okay. And before that, when you just came in, what work did you do?
Well, that was because I can say I introduced those kind of economic modeling, forecasting at the bank. When I came...
So you literally, started the research unit where they do all this?
No, there was research unit.
There was research unit.
But the capacity in this area is limited in the country.
Okay.
Even as governor, I was trying to build capacity in this area. So I linked the research department with.
Okay. So when you joined the bank, who was the governor at the time?
Clark.
Okay.
Clark was
Clark
the
Bajo.
governor. Clark Bajo, yeah.
Okay.
So the research department, and then this forecasting monetary policy committee meeting, we were the first people to do a presentation, and I was doing the inflation report and balance of risk forecasting. So I was doing all that, presented at every monetary policy committee meeting. I remember when Governor Jatta was there.
Ahmad, no, Jatta.
Famara.
Famara Jatta, yes.
You know, when my report, it hasn't received my report, you'll say, I can't see in front. I can't see in front, okay. Yeah. Because, that is where the forecasts are done, and the risks to inflation are all done. So those are the kind of works I was doing. Okay. Build models, forecast, inflation. And even some of the core inflation at the bank, I developed it for the bank. And the sentiment survey, that one also, I developed it, looking at the diffusion indices, and I developed it. Core inflation, I looked at the strip of all the volatile food, look at the utilities, strip them off. So you want to know, what inflation monetary policy can influence. Because if something like volatile food, which you don't have control over, even if you increase interest rate, it's not going to change that. So it tells you the inflation that monetary policy can influence. So I developed those. Still, the bank is using them. Yes, and,
I was going to ask, how much is the bank still using?
They are using that. If you hear a monetary policy committee meeting, if you hear them talking about core inflation, sentiment surveys, yes. I developed them. So when I was heading research as the officer in charge, we had some mission here. So the mission, when they came, one area was this medium-term macro forecasting. So I linked them with the staff. So as the governor, the work continued. So he is in New Zealand, so I linked him with the staff of the research department. So they work together to do macroeconomic forecasting. And he was also training the staff to build expertise in that area. Because those kind of capacity is lacking in Africa. Yeah. This complex modeling and so forth. That financial modeling, macro modeling, using those guys. Because before, in the 80s, people, during the era of Keynes in the 30s, Keynesian economics, it worked very well. Government started spending, and then the economy started recovering. But in the 70s to early 80s, we had stagflation. Prices were increasing, but also economy was falling.
Is that what stagflation is?
Stagflation. Okay. Stag means stagnant, and stagnant economy with inflation. To say stagflation.
Yeah, but one was going up, the other one was going down.
Yes.
They were both shifting, only going in different directions.
Yes, that was the thinking before, that inflation and employment, they go in opposite direction. So if you want to reduce inflation, it will affect impact on employment. That is, employment will go down. But what happened during the 70s and 80s, you had high inflation and high unemployment at the same time. So those were the Phillips curves that they broke down at the time. So that was what happened during the period. So Keynesian economists did not have any explanation for that. So since there was this stagflation now, and the Keynesian economics did not have explanation for that, so people believe that these people were asking questions: what happened to monetary policy? What happened to economic theory? Is the theory wrong? Then that was the time Lucas came with the critique. That is called the famous Lucas critique in economics. He told people that people change their behavior in response to policy, and that affects the effectiveness of policy. So that led people to move from this traditional modeling, build models, mathematics, and use them as machines to more dynamic, more micro-founded theories because you believe that people will adjust themselves. For example, if central bank is increasing monetary interest rate, you expect people to change their behavior and adjust towards that. And according to Lucas, people's change in behavior may affect the policy itself. So now you want to capture that behavior of people through optimization. So that led to the new approaches. So I linked my staff to that expert. So he was training my team on how to do computer coding, how to build that models, and how to do the forecasting with that model. But of course, with the work I have done on this book, I took a completely different approach. The guy Prescott and the others who developed that model, they won the Nobel Prize for that
very
work.
Good,
yeah.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
You still describe inflation as very high.
Yeah.
Although the CBG is taking some pat on the back from bringing it to, from over 18% even down to single digits. I know that the Gambia's target is 5%. Was it 5% when you were there?
Yes.
It was always 5%.
5%.
What's the base? What's the history? What's the basis of this 5% inflation?
Inflation is always a disease. It is a disease.
But I hear it's good for every economy.
No. High inflation undermines economic growth.
Would you consider 5% high?
No, 5 is okay. Based on so many studies have shown that inflation beyond 5%.
Okay. So we based ours on 5% based on these studies.
Realities, exactly. Realities of the economy.
Because there are countries that aim at 2%. In the UK.
EU and others.
Exactly.
Yes, because they have reached a level where unless if there is a major crisis and the base is low, then you start having inflation in economic growth of like 7% or so. But otherwise, if you look at their economic growth are normally low, 2% or so.
Okay, so our target is 5%.
Normally
when
5%.
you were becoming governor of the central bank, where was inflation at the time?
Inflation was above 9%. It was above 9%. So we brought it down to 5%.
And then COVID came.
It did not affect inflation.
Oh, it did not?
No, inflation was 5%. We were very proactive during...
How did you do that? Because apparently, everybody's blaming COVID.
When I was at the bank, we weathered the storm. The COVID issue was almost over because, we acted quickly earlier. When people were doing the first dose, that was the second dose for the Central Bank of the Gambia. When I was leaving the bank, our monetary policy rate was 10%. When I came as governor, monetary policy rate was about 20%.
Oh, wow.
But, when we achieve inflation target, so I reduced the interest rate. We reduced the interest rate up to 10%. Our target was...
What made that possible?
Well, objective of the central bank it should be clear, limited, and prioritized.
And before you became governor, the objective was not that clear?
No, it was clear.
Yeah.
If you look at the Central Bank Act, it says the primary object of the central bank is to achieve and maintain price stability.
Okay.
So if there is, a crisis situation, your focus will be to maintain price stability in the country. In fact, this is what central banks are able to do best. Focus on inflation, and so that inflation is low, you achieve price stability. High inflation creates uncertainty, undermines investment, and in that case, it undermines economic growth.
What I'm trying to get at is what made it possible for you to cut the MPR?
Because of one is discipline in the management of the bank is very important. If central bank if you don't control money supply very well, you are going to run into price stability problem. It is well documented all over, and this is not something which economists are debating at this point. It tested and that too much money in the economy causes inflation. This is something which has been documented over and over, tested and proven over. In the 1930s, Federal Reserve reduced reserve requirement and poured money into the economy. It caused inflation. But after some time, they did a policy reversal to implement contraction in monetary policy. That also affected the credit markets. So it caused a lot of financial problems in the country. So it is well documented that too much money in the economy causes inflation. Now, during COVID, we took several policy measures. Now, one was that we reduced reserve requirement because the room was there. Inflation was 5%. We have exchange rate was stable, 51%, very stable. We also, so there was massive policy room for us to maneuver. Interest rate, we dropped it to 10%. So not only that, we increased money supply because inflation is low. That time, this American rice, bag of rice was 1,200 or so, and now it's 2,250 or somewhere around that. So this was one aspect. Because stability was achieved, there was a very big room, policy room. So we were able to expand policy to ensure that, within some period, the impact of corona will also be mitigated. The other thing we did was we are making a lot of profit as a central bank at the time. Yes, 2024, we made a profit of over $500 million.
2024 is only last year.
Yeah, in fact, 2020. No, not 2024. Yeah. 2019.
Okay.
Because I left in 2020.
Yes.
2019.
The year before COVID.
Before COVID, we made a profit of over $500 million. And that 2020, by September, at the time I was leaving the bank, I left a profit of over $300 million, even during COVID. And we had big dollar C reserves. So when COVID struck, that dollar C reserve also, we ensure that because there are legacy debts which government owed to the central bank, they are paying us interest. So whatever government was going to pay the central bank, we used the dollar C reserve and paid it on their behalf. So we freed resources in the budget. I think, if I can remember, close to 800 million money that they should have spent, pay interests, principals. We paid on their behalf. And then the other thing we did was IMF rapid credit facility. IMF lends to central banks. So they lend us, we gave the money to government. We transferred about 1.3 billion for government to have more resources to help our people.
Dallas or dollars?
Dallas. Okay. About $25 million. And the other thing we did was, central banks around the world, they suspended, they wrote banks to suspend debt payments, loan payments by their customers, and they would not be penalized because of the circumstance that everybody was in. For us in the Gambia here, we took a different approach. We took it on a case-by-case basis. That was what we did, on a case-by-case basis, rather than suspending everything.
Yeah, explain that to us, case by case.
Yeah.
Who would you pay at any given point, and who would you not pay?
Exactly.
What does it mean?
Yeah. So quite a number of policy measures were taken, and our banks, the time of Corona struck, they were on a very solid footing, very strong footing. So because of that, COVID did not in some countries you have banks going into trouble. By the time I was leaving the bank, there was no bank in the financial system that was under any form of financial difficulty.
Not even Megabank.
No.
We'll come back to that in in a moment. But I just want you also to ask: did you not benefit, and you, I mean, the central bank and the country entirely, from the goodwill that was out there post Jammeh? Because I mean, you were the first central bank governor under the Barrow administration.
Yes. Yes, when
we had a lot of euros pouring into this country, a lot of dollars pouring into this country.
Yes.
So which meant that your international reserves were really good,
Yes, but when there was a change in 2017.
2017 was when the change. We voted for change in 2016, and the change came about in 2017. Yes.
So what happened was that first we did not have any reserve because there were these swaps, and so when we came the first 3 months I wasn't even sleeping.
Oh
no!
Why?
I could not.
What kept you awake every night?
When the central bank does not have reserves, you cannot sleep, because reserves is very critical.
What happened to our reserves?
Well, everything was depleted.
Before Jammeh left?
It was a long process. So, there are foreign payments, fiscal operations here and there. So the reserves was depleted. Wow. And they were going to swap arrangement.
Emptied completely.
Well, I inherited 38 million, because if you have like 50 million and then there is a loan of 38 million swaps, so obviously you say reserve was less than 2 weeks of imports of goods and services.
It's me, wow.
Yeah, and as economists, the rule of thumb is that you must keep at least 3 months of imports. So that is why we say we run out of reserves. Mm-hmm. This was happening. So the first thing, we have to get some support from the IMF, Rapid Credit Facility. It's an emergency support from the IMF. But also because donors, they want to see progress, and they want to be so that you are doing the right thing. So the first thing we did was we reformed policies in the country. One of them was the reference rates. We reformed all those policies, and then we paid.
You introduced the reference rate?
No.
Oh, okay.
Reference rate came in around late 2015.
Okay.
And then it was implemented in 2016. But when I came, those kind of policies, we abandoned them. And then we went for market-friendly policies. And that paid us. And when the development partners, they saw that these people are doing the right thing, then obviously everyone started coming. But when we did the reforms, we saw that the market was flooded with foreign currency. Because they say investors are they are cowards. They are like birds in a tree. Mm-hmm. If you throw a stone in there,
they fly away.
They will all fly away.
Mm-hmm.
So when there is no risk there, obviously you see them coming back. So within a short period, foreign currency was all over the market. I introduced auction in the market. If we want to buy foreign currency, what we do is we float to the market. Banks, we deal only with banks. Banks will bid. Once they bid, then the committee will see it. You are accepted based on price or rejected based on price. So once that happens, we send the result back to the market. So this was very useful. I think from May to October, we were able to raise over $60 million right from the market here.
Oh, wow.
When they were unable to even raise $1 million because of policies that were in place. But from May to October, we were able to raise about $60 million. And by the end of the year, we paid all the swaps, $38 million. We paid everything. And then we were able to save over $100 million. So by the time I was leaving the central bank, the country has reserves which this country had never had in our history.
And, coming now to this mega bank thing, I just want to go back to the text message I read at the beginning, giving the situation of the bank before you left. Mega bank was safe and sound, you say. When I was leaving the central bank, it had capital twice higher than the regulatory requirement of 200 million. Mega bank was under no financial distress. In fact, we got an offer of 1.5 billion from an investor through auction, with exchange rate at 52.51 to $1 at the time. That is about $30 million. This bank has excellent landed properties. These are high quality assets. Mega bank cannot be sold for $1 billion. We didn't hear about, all we heard about was they had toxic acids and all of that. So
no, Mega Bank. Let me give a short history of Mega Bank.
Sure, go ahead.
Mega Bank, it was Keystone Bank, but it used to be Gambia BICI, International Bank for Commerce and Industry. I was there for a long time.
Yes,
BICI. So if a bank like that nature has been in existence for a long time, so it normally has a lot of these landed properties, particularly in key positions.
Okay.
So became Keystone. So Keystone failed in 2014. So government and the central bank at the time decided that they need to take control of the bank, because for you to take control of the bank, you take into consideration the systemic nature of that bank, whether the bank is systemic. That is, if you allow it to go down, it may have contagion effect on other banks, and they can also go down. And the second consideration is the small business consideration, a real sector economic consideration. If the bank has a lot of small business customers, and then its contribution to the economy is large, so allowing it to go down may impact the economy. Sure. And since this is one of the important banks in this country at the time, like with Standard Chartered, BICI, so it was deemed necessary to ensure that they take control of the bank. And that was what they did in 2014. They cleaned the bank, reorganized it. They have good bank and a bad bank. Now, bad bank was Camco, Keystone Asset Management Company, and good bank was Mega Bank. So all the toxic assets in Mega Bank were transferred to Camco. So government provided 600 million, because the toxic assets total 600 million. So government provided 600 million so that the bank will now be afloat. Then central bank recapitalized the bank. That is why the bank is owned by the central bank, because the bank capitalized it is in the balance sheet of the central bank.
By $300,000.
300
million, sorry, not thousand, 300 million.
Yes, but when the toxic assets were taken from the books of the bank, there were write-backs, because when you have probably loans, or you have losses, you take them to knock them against your capital buffer. If that is depleted, obviously it would hit your capital. So, but when the toxic assets were removed, there were write-backs. So the capital of the bank jumped to $500 million. So that is why I say it is highly capitalized. Until the time I was leaving the bank, the capital was around $500 million, Mega Bank's capital. So it's a very good bank, a very solid bank. And so once they did that, then central bank took control, and then they tried to manage the bank. Now, of course, traditional bank resolution normally is a fiscal policy responsibility. That is, the weight lifting is normally done by the government. But in this case, they do some burden sharing government doing something, and then Ministry of Central Bank also recapitalizing the bank. But of course, they were not the first to do it, because this also happened during the last financial crisis in 2008, 2007, 2008, where you see Federal Reserve bailing out even insurance companies. So they were not the first to do it. It's called the unconventional policies, because you see them doing quantitative easing, central bank buying government papers, and forward guidances were also introduced. That is, talking to give confidence to the people with the hope that, but of course, central bank has to be very credible, with the hope that this will assure markets. So this was what happened. So the bank was operating, and then when we came, we sent our team there at the mega bank to manage the bank. That time the managing director was there, the contract ended. They were given contract of 1 year, so 1 year contract ended. So we felt that we need to send new team to turn the institution around. And that was exactly what we did. So a new team was sent there. This is very experienced. He worked on Continent Bank before, was in the bank for nearly 30 years.
This is different from Mr. Mudunjai, who was the last
Mudunjai came when I left.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is Mr. Jatta, Omar Jatta.
Okay.
Yeah, he has been at the central bank for nearly 30 years, worked in different departments from supervision, was the director of foreign department. They are responsible for exchange rate issues, reserve management. He was the director there. So he retired there as the director. So he was sent there to manage the bank. And they did a good.
And it was while he was there that you found an investor willing to buy the bank for 1.5 billion.
That was early 2020.
Okay.
Yes, that was early 2020. So one investor
Did
came.
the fact that he never came forward to pay up mean that maybe they reevaluate, they reconsidered their offer and thought, well, no, the bank after all is not worth 30 million?
No, what happened? What happened? When you come, the first thing we do is we have to do due diligence on you.
Yes.
When we do due diligence on you, then we allow you to also do due diligence on the bank if we are satisfied with you. Because having money doesn't mean you can own a bank. There are rules. Because when a bank fails, it is the taxpayers who will pay depositors' funds.
Yes.
So that is why you are there to protect the depositors' funds. So they also conducted their due diligence on the bank. And then when they were satisfied, so we introduced an auction. So we open it, and then they put in an offer of 1.5 billion. So when they did, the committees opened the auction, they saw the offer, they accepted it, recommended for us to accept, so we accepted it. And then we asked them to deposit the money at our Federal Reserve Bank account in New York. Now, they asked us to give them 3 months. So we gave them 3 months to deposit the money. But after 3 months, they were unable to deposit the money. And then we wrote back to them. Then they wrote back to ask us to give them an extension of 1 month. So we gave them another extension of 1 month for them to do the payment. Mm-hmm. So we gave them extension for 1 month. Still, they were unable to make payment. So our thinking, because they didn't tell us, but our thinking is that maybe they didn't have enough money to pay. That would maybe the reason. So when that happened, then we started again. We decided that the bank belongs to the Gambian people. So we can now prepare a share prospectus and start selling shares to the Gambian people. We even identified somebody to take up that issue. But when Corona struck, that work was disrupted. So by September 2020,
you had been
yes,
out of the bank.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one thing I must say, if that time, like after September 2020, this was September 2020, Corona was a little bit subsiding, but there were policies in place already to help our businesses. That policy was that was what I explained. that many countries wrote to their banks to suspend loan repayments to protect their businesses. That was what I explained, that for us, we took it on a case-by-case basis. So during that period, Corona period, there were businesses who even wrote to their banks, asking them to help them suspend the principal payment. They would be able to do the interest payment. So we took them on a case-by-case basis, and we approved them for them to give them that space. So during that period, if you assess a bank and you are not aware of this policy in place, some of those things you will think that they are non-conforming loans. But this was policies in place to help small businesses in the Gambia, so that they are not going to go down as a result of Corona, because you were mitigating the impact of Corona on the economy. So these were some of the policies in place. I think there were a lot of people who worked on this. They were working they work with our staff and bank. They work on this and take it on a case-by-case basis. Okay. Yeah. So I think there were some lack of communication or breakdown of communication somewhere. If you are aware of that, that will not be. But before you go, the bank has good landed properties, because as I said, it has been here for a long time. Just imagine the head of it building, if you value it today. In Banjul, yes. In Banjul, if you value it today, it's going to be a lot of money. So I think that valuations also, because sometimes some assets, if you look at the balance sheet, they may be recorded at cost. And this time, if we are selling, of course, you have to go to the market and get the market value of those assets. Yes, so that's important. Yeah.
Excellent jam, Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta do de de. Luta mënulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Bisul mu fay.
What?
Bisul mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. At Wave, Bisul mu fine? Wave, your money is yours.
Jah Oil. The company have filling stations across the country, and our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market.
It's after 10. We have to end. We don't have all day. But just finally, as an economist and somebody who's headed the Central Bank of the Gambia for at least 3 years, how would you describe the Gambian economy right now? And if it needs fixing, which I know it does, I mean, how can we fix the Gambian economy?
Yeah. No, when you have this kind of situation, inflation by any standard is high at this moment. And when we say inflation, people normally don't understand inflation. Inflation is the rate of change of general prices, like this month compared to the same month last year. Now, if somebody tells you that inflation is going down, doesn't mean that prices are falling. If you are buying your bag of rice at 2,200 and they say inflation is falling, it doesn't mean your bag of rice price is falling. No, yeah. It means the rate at which it is increasing has slowed down. So that is why, if you remember the last time we had interview here, I was always saying, let us act now. Because if prices go to that level, to bring them down becomes problematic. So you remain with very high prices for a very long time. So that is why precedence should have been given to inflation. Tackle inflation as quickly as possible. You will not be able to have healthy economic growth when you have high inflation. People are struggling with cost of living. So you give priority to inflation, tackle it. When in the 70s, when America was having 70s and early 80s, they were having very high inflation and stagnant economic growth. It was a very difficult period at the time. In some countries, they were even, because that time they had problems with oil prices, and I think it coincided with the war with Israel and Palestine or somewhere. So the Arab states, they put some embargo on oil. It was a very difficult period. Oil prices increased, and then you will have inflation. But economic growth was also very stagnant. So, but if we look at the data, you'll see that there was care in managing the economy at the time. And they ensured that interest rates went up significantly to ensure that inflation comes down. And when inflation reduced significantly, then you see the government started increasing expenditure, and things started coming, interest rates were low, so the economy started moving towards the desired level. So it is important that otherwise inflation, it undermines your growth, because your interest rates will remain very high. And if interest rates are high, and that's also very bad for the government itself as well, because government interest rates will also, they have to borrow from the domestic market, so those rates will be high, and they will also affect government's finances. So that is why it is important that we give precedence to price stability. Economic stability is a precondition. You cannot fly a plane when there is a storm. You have to ensure that the storm passes, and then you take off. So economic stability is a precondition. This is very important. So let's sort out this cost of living problem.
Okay. Inflation.
And then we focus on key issues.
And how do you sort out inflation? You warned against pouring money into the market.
No, you have to have money that is consistent with economic activity.
Okay.
That is important. And you also use your interest rates. If inflation is high, you move up your increase your interest rate. But you must have money that's consistent with economic activity. And the government expenditure also should be done in such a way that it will be consistent with your inflation objective. So it takes a coordination between Ministry of Finance and the central bank to work together and then sort out this inflation problem.
The monetary policy rate has been stable. Is it around the 17%
I think
for a while now? Is that too high, or?
Well, the question is, if we say inflation is single digit, and then you have interest rate at 17%.
Yeah.
If you look at the real rate, even if interest rate inflation is 10%, the real rate will be around 7% real interest rate. So that is still a very high interest rate. It is a very high interest rate. Yeah. When we came in 2017, inflation was around 9%, but the monetary policy rate was almost to about 20%. That was why the first thing we did was we cut that rate.
And brought it
from
down to
20 to 15%.
15 first.
Yes,
Okay.
15 first. That was what we did.
Okay.
Because why would you have inflation at 9 and monetary policy rate around 20? So they are not consistent. And during that period, credit to private sector wasn't growing. But when we reduced September 2020, interest credit to private sector was growing on average by 20%. Because we brought down interest rate. So high interest.
So lending from commercial banks became a bit cheaper.
Exactly.
Still high, but a bit cheaper.
A bit cheaper, yeah.
Okay. So that's one way of fixing the economy, lowering the MPR, the monetary policy lending rate, which is the rate at which commercial banks, borrow. Borrow from the central bank.
That is the lending I introduced those. We have the standing lending facility and the deposit facility. Now, lending facility is normally 1% above the monetary policy rate, and deposit facility, we normally keep it low. That is normally the base for everybody. You don't expect the market to go below the deposit rate. So if your policy rate is 17 and the rate at which people borrow from the central bank is at 18%, so obviously what happens is that commercial banks, if they are lending to the people, that may be around 20 or 20 something percent. So it keeps lending very less. And I think I saw that credit to private sector was declining. I think I read it somewhere. I think their monetary policy.
That's not very good. That's not very good.
Yeah.
I'll end with a question from a listener. Good morning, Peter. Can you tell us what caused the downfall of Megabank? I mean, you're not the governor. You are not governor at the time of the downfall of Megabank.
No, it was.
What is your understanding of?
No, it's credit. NPL, particularly in particular, non-performing loans. Yeah, that led to the separation of good bank and a bad bank. They had a lot of non-performing loans, loans that were not performing, and obviously, if they cannot pay, you knock it against the capital, the bank goes down. And there is minimum capital for banks, that's 200 million, which every bank must meet. If you go below that...
200 at your time? During your time, isn't it?
And, no, it has been there even at the time of...
Okay, I think it's gone up since you left.
Yeah, maybe they increase it.
I think it's gone up.
Yeah, but for us, we left it at 200 million. Well, that time it was okay, and then now it was 200 million. So if you go below 200 million, in corporate finance, once a minimum regulatory requirement is set, and it's a continuous regulatory requirement, means you must meet all the time. If you miss it, you fall below it, you lose control, right? So because of that, central bank went to control of the bank. But the bank was down because of mainly non-performing loans. Obviously, it also had management problems, that is governance issues, because some of those loans would have been, those things could have been avoided at the time. In 2014, yeah.
I know taxes are not a matter for the Central Bank of the Gambia, although, how high taxes are would have a direct, bearing on the work of the Central Bank. A lot of people complain that, taxes are high in this country. Do you find them high? And how do you rate the job of, the GRA?
No, they are doing a good job. I saw they collected 20 something billion.
20.8 billion.
Yeah. No, that is a good, very good performance. There was a time it used to be around 12 point something billion.
Yeah.
Now it is at 20 something billion. That is a very good performance. Peter, in this country, the issue is, I think, what we need to, as a first step, address is multiplicity of taxes.
Yes. You see a lot of that in our tax system.
Because, for example, if you want to register a business, you go to area council,
yes,
you pay something.
Yes.
You go to I don't know where, you pay something. You go somewhere, you pay something. So, like, for example, you buy or sell a land. You go to the alcalde, you pay something. You go to area council, chief, you pay something. You go to area council, you pay something. So these are all taxes. When those multiplicities could have been avoided, and then it can make things easier for the people. Whether taxes could be reduced, that you have to be careful. Because this is the revenue which goes to our budget, and that is what is financing our development. And the other part of the money they got is normally grants. They get grants and loans from domestic market and from outside. But the taxes they collect is money, is a very stable money, because grants, they can promise you and it will never come. Loans, you may look for concessionary loan, but sometimes it may be difficult for you to get it. But this other one is our own money. And sustainable development requires a stable domestic resource mobilization. So that is why it is important that we don't rush on those kind of things. We take our time because GRA is doing a lot for us. 20 billion.
It is, yes.
And
well, they're aiming for 23.
23, exactly. Exactly.
So
let's those kind of things, let us not rush on them. And we take our time.
I don't know how much you were receiving in remittances when you were central bank governor, but now we are getting in excess of $750 million in remittances. 775.6 million the last time.
It has been increasing. When we came first, I think it was about almost 500 million.
Almost half
by
a
the
billion.
time, by the time I was leaving, it was almost 600 million.
Okay.
So it was increasing throughout.
The question, even for the central bank, is, how do we maximize, the country's gains from these remittances? What can we do to encourage Gambians in the diaspora to give even more to sort of propel, speed up, add momentum to the development of the country?
Well, one of the ways is don't come with projects. For example, housing projects.
Oh, okay, housing. Because they're thinking of this Sitting Corner or Sitting
yes.
Corner, Mandina Bar.
Yeah, Singapore.
Stretch, yes.
Singapore, most of those structures, their people are living in houses built by their government. So it is important we have housing as part of our modernization process.
Did you think about this when you were governor?
Of course, yeah. Yeah. It is.
You were only not given the time to implement this.
This is important. We need to, because central bank, those are not our areas. The central bank has a specialized function.
Okay.
In the road constructions, these are not areas for central bank. If you want to, anything you want to give to government, that is why we have in the law, government can borrow up to 10% of previous year's tax revenue from the central bank. This, if in the event that they have some issues, revenue issues, central bank can come in up to 10% of previous year's revenue, tax revenue, to fill.
So there's an automatic $2 billion for them, given that we collected.
Yes, but of course it is loan. Of course it is loan. It must be paid with interest, and it has different implications compared to. Because this is new injection of liquidity and it's inflationary. It's like you are printing money and give it to them. So that's why I say central bank is the last resort. But so housing is important. You create new cities. You also have transportation in place. It is important. If we have a railway from even Jarasoma to Banjul, people can stay in Jarasoma to travel here. The river transportation, not even stop somebody from sleeping anywhere in Yomi, even Badibu, to come to work and go back. Cape Verde, if you look at it, they have domestic flights. They also have luxury travel. They have, these yachts in the sea.
Wow, you're making
yes,
you're making Cape Verde very attractive to visit.
Yeah, they have domestic flights because they have islands. Some islands, the distance is far, so they have domestic flights flying to those, and they also have yachts going from one city to the other. And if you go to some areas in Cape Verde, property prices are millions of dollars. It's a high middle income country. Wow. When I was at the phone, I was working on seashells. Well, that is paradise today. It's paradise, But if you go there, you can take domestic flight from one end to another, island, or you can take a yacht from one city to the other. Nothing stops us from having a city in Janjambure.
That would be
You
great.
can go and spend your weekend in Janjambure.
Yeah.
You have your weekend home in
Then I'll
Janjambure.
have an opportunity to visit Janjanbureh for the first time.
We can have even a small airport there. You can join a plane here and fly to Janjambure. So these are, look, like I tell people, tourism product in this country, you just take the River Gambia. And there is another big resource in this country, which we are ignoring.
Which is?
It's fresh water.
Oh.
River Gambia, part of our River Gambia, is fresh water. So that's
for agriculture.
In fact, you can start your development with agriculture. It is a development strategy. Now, some people, development strategies will say, well, you can do infrastructure, create the enabling environment, and you expect every other thing to fall in place. That is the infrastructure approach. Say, provide the infrastructure, create the enable environment, and investment will flow in, things will fall in place. Others will tell you, start with agriculture. You produce goods. Then you also start with agro-industries. If you start producing goods, you start processing. As you do it, you know better. So your industries will start developing. That's the way you get your industrialization. So if we start with agriculture, you will have food self-sufficiency. You will export food. You have your agro-industries. You increase the sophistication of the economy. And as you are exporting, you employ a lot of people. People will be on the farms, people will be in factories, people will be in transportation, ports. So you create a lot of jobs. So I think this is extremely important. So other resources, fresh water, I think it is gold for us.
Fantastic.
Yes, we need to make maximum use of it.
All that is addressed in his book, The General Theory of Employment, Exports, Monetary and Physical, second edition, August 2024.
Yeah.
Bakary, thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you.
Bakary Jammeh, former governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia, in conversation with us this morning on Coffee Time. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.
Axila jam si Wave.
Yo, apply. Yo, luta to dede. Luta mo nulo jël moto nga andil ma xaalis. Hello?
Bisol mu fay.
What?
Bisol mu fine.
Oh, yes!
Wave Axina Gambia. Deposit and withdraw money, pay bills and buy mobile credit without fees. Transfer money wherever in the country for only 1% fee. Ak Wave. Bisol mu fine. Wave. Your money is yours.
In a world where progress never sleeps, one company stands out as the driving force behind infrastructure and energy solutions. Introducing our fuel company and cement producer, where excellence meets efficiency. Jah Oil. The company have 30 filling stations across the country that are all operating, which includes the recently completed Yarambamba and Old Yundum filling stations. And our rates are relatively cheaper than anyone else across the country. Along the years, Jah Oil introduces importation and distribution of cement in their line of business to diversify and strengthen their operations. Are you a cement retailer? At the moment, Jah Oil is the biggest producer and distributor of cement in the country with the most competitive prices in the market. With a focus on sustainability and innovation, we are paving the way for a greener, stronger future. Trust in us to fuel your projects and lay the groundwork for success. We currently produce over 25,200,000 bags per year. As the largest cement producer in the country, Jah Oil also targets to export cement to the neighboring countries like Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, and others. Join us on our journey to shape a world where every drop of fuel and every bag of cement makes a difference. Together, we can build a brighter tomorrow.